Hello, everyone. My name is Azka, and today I'll be talking about representation, reclamation, and resistance, and how my project, Inviting In, uses portraiture to challenge erasure and affirm BIPOC trans identities. To share a little bit about myself, I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a Pakistani queer and trans artist and health educator based in Treaty 1 territory. My contributions focus on supporting BIPOC and 2S LGBTQIA+ communities through comprehensive health education, harm reduction, peer support, and advocacy. My art practice transcends mediums and explores concepts like identity, gender, and diaspora while being rooted in anti-oppressive and relational practice. Inviting In is a portrait series celebrating BIPOC, trans, and gender diverse individuals adorned in cultural attire that affirms their multidimensional identities. This project emerged from a personal and a community need to see multiple aspects of our identities reflected, not just as trans people, but as trans people who exist within culture, tradition, and community, holding our transness and cultural diversity side by side. This allows for inclusive trans visibility. So, portraits in this context become a form of cultural reclamation, a way to resist the erasure of our identities and to disrupt the dominant narratives that often isolate culture and gender from one another. Too often, trans representation is framed through a Western lens. This project disrupts that by offering space for participants to define and express themselves fully on their own terms. It also serves as a form of archiving and documenting ourselves in the face of erasure. Representation shapes how we see ourselves and how others see us. Historically, colonialism, white supremacy, and cisnormativity have dictated which identities are validated and which are erased. Intentional representation is a form of resistance and survival, reclaiming our right to exist fully and preserve our histories. Portraiture also acts as a political and cultural tool. Portraiture holds power. It can affirm identities or perpetuate erasure depending on who holds the lens. When we center ourselves as the subjects of our own stories, we shift the perspective and we shift who has power. In Aberrations in Black, Toward a Queer of Color Critique, Roderick A. Ferguson argues that the media, as part of a larger sociopolitical system, often uses racialized and gendered stereotypes, especially in its representation of queer and trans people of color. Ferguson calls for a queer of color critique to challenge these reductive representations. These stereotypes often pathologize us, hypersexualize us, dehumanize us, and don't fully represent us. Narrative sovereignty is the ability to tell our own stories the way we want to tell them. Our stories are what make us human. They're how we pass on our culture, language, and ways of life. They're how we connect with our families and ancestors. And when we are removed from our stories, we lose who we are. So, who gets to tell our stories? We should. Narrative sovereignty is about reclaiming control and embracing and celebrating our multifaceted identities with agency. Kathy J. Cohen, in Punks, Bulldaggers, and Welfare Queens, The Radical Potential of Queer Politics, emphasizes the radical potential of storytelling and archives for 2S LGBTQIA+ people of color. These narratives challenge mainstream histories and provide alternative understandings of our experiences that would have otherwise been excluded or forgotten. I'll share some more portraits from the project. Many shared that this was their first time seeing themselves captured, with both their gender and cultural identity fully being honored. I also want to highlight arts-based research as a methodology using creative practices to explore and express lived experiences. In this project, I centered relationality, consent, collaboration, and care. This project aims to engage with both art and scholarship in a way that allows for a nuanced exploration of identity, including cultural heritage and trans experiences. Arts-based research as a methodological approach facilitates a deeper, more holistic understanding of the lived realities of marginalized communities. It also challenges traditional research models and honors creative practices as legitimate forms of inquiry. Portraiture is deeply personal and vulnerable. As an artist whose work is centered in relational practice, it's my responsibility to create spaces that empower marginalized communities by listening to and honoring the narratives of those who have been historically silenced. We created safer spaces by having slow, intentional shoots, often having a meal together and having conversations about concepts and comforts. Participants had full control over their representation, from styling to poses to final image approval. I positioned the participants as co-creators throughout the entire process. And as a trans BIPOC person myself, taking these pictures of community members, I know that the process is rooted in cultural competence and it's trauma informed. With the increasing attacks on trans rights, documenting BIPOC trans identities isn't just important, it's urgent as we resist the forces that seek to silence us. In these times, it's also important to find strength in the moments we feel affirmed. I want you to think of or find a picture of yourself where you feel affirmed. What is it about that picture that feels affirming to you? Is it the way that your hair is sitting, the ways that your clothes are fitting? This project asks who gets to be seen, whose stories are heard, who shapes the narratives, who has been left out, and how do we change that? Western research often dismisses creative and community-based ways of knowing, whereas arts-based research honors storytelling and visual representation as legitimate and valuable forms of knowledge. I'm grateful to each of the participants for their trust and vulnerability, and to all of you, thank you for witnessing this ongoing project.